Boah, das Intro dauert fast 8 Minuten, ne? Herzlich willkommen zurück bei Nein, nein, nein. Wir befinden uns langsam... sorry, kurz strecken. Ich muss die Aufnahme schon mal neu starten, weil OBS aus irgendeinem Grund keinen Ton aufgenommen hat. Gut, dass ich das früh erwischt habe und nicht erst am Ende einer emotional aufreibenden Aufnahme. Ja, herzlich willkommen zurück. Wir sind im Endspurt langsam. Yippie, wir haben es fast geschafft. Uns fehlen noch 2 Endings. Eins davon, vermute ich mal, ist dass wir machen alles richtig und alle werden happy, außer vielleicht Mann Nummer 9. Ich weiß nicht, ich glaube, den platzt jedes Mal der Kopf oder halt der Unterleib oder sowas. Inzwischen habe ich nicht mehr so große Hoffnung für ihn. Aber um bei dem anderen Ending weiterzukommen, brauchen wir eine sehr signifikante Information. Und mein Intel, also meine Stimme aus dem Off, meinte, dass diese Information in dem vorletzten Ending versteckt liegt, irgendwo. Und jetzt ist die Frage, wo gehen wir hin? Was machen wir überhaupt? Ja, letztes Mal haben wir basically die True Ending Route gemacht. Also ich würde es jetzt einfach mal als True Ending bezeichnen. Wir sind durch Tür 4 gegangen, wir haben das Kleeblatt geholt, wir haben das Kleeblatt Clover gegeben. Wir haben mit Clover dann die Kapitänskajüte gemacht und so weiter. Und ihr die Hoffnung gegeben, dass erstens Snake noch lebt und zweitens, dass halt niemand ihn umgebracht hat. Das heißt, sie rastet zumindest nicht aus. Zumindest etwas. Unser Problem ist, dass uns Santa eiskalt erwischt hat und ohne uns verschwunden ist. Freundlicherweise hat er uns noch 2 weitere Teammitglieder hinterlassen, was uns aber nicht viel bringt, weil wir zu dritte halt die Tür 9 nicht öffnen können. Ja, und jetzt ist die einzige Hoffnung, das, was da in diesem Sarg liegt. Und dieser Sarg braucht einen Code. Und um diesen Code herauszufinden, keine Ahnung, mal sehen. Aber die Preview hat uns tatsächlich sehr wichtige Hinweise darauf gegeben, wo es uns als nächstes hinzieht. Dort sehen wir nämlich am Anfang die erste Klasse Kabine. Wir sehen dann das Labor mit der Szene mit Lotus. Und dann sehen wir tatsächlich, wie June in diesem Maschinenraum zusammenbricht. Und ich glaube, ich bin mit der festen Überzeugung, es wäre total absurd, wenn sie das irgendwie nicht, ja, wenn sie das irgendwie falsch angegeben hätten. Ich denke, unsere neue Route ist Tür Nummer 5 mit der ersten Klasse Kabine und Snake und Seven. Dann gehen wir ins Labor mit Lotus und Clover, so wie wir es eigentlich im zweiten oder dritten Playthrough hatten. Dritten Playthrough, glaube ich. Ja, im dritten Playthrough. Aber anstatt dann in Tür Nummer 1 zu gehen, was wir dann gemacht hatten, gehen wir diesmal in Tür Nummer 6. Wir gehen in den Maschinenraum mit Ace, Center und June und gucken mal, was passiert. Interessante Dinge könnten dort passieren, denn Lotus spricht ja ganz am Ende ihres Monologs über Computer und Screens und so weiter, spricht sie das Thema, ich habe hier den Namen vergessen, Gesichtsblindheit. Das war's, Gesichtsblindheit an. Und ich hatte ja schon sehr lange die Vermutung, dass Ace darunter leiden könnte. Er scheint mit Gesichtern so ein bisschen Probleme zu haben. Und ich bin sehr gespannt. Ich habe interessante Dinge in dieser Preview gesehen und ja, mal sehen, was uns heute drin bringt. Also, ihr kennt das Spiel. Wenn irgendwas Neues auftaucht, dann cutte ich hier wieder rein. Sollte aber nichts Neues auftauchen, sehen wir uns spätestens nach dem... Ja, erstmal nach der ersten Kabine wieder. Dann schalte ich nochmal rein. Dann nach dem Labor schalte ich nochmal rein. Erste Klasse Kabine so rum. Und dann... Ja, mal sehen. Sehen wir uns, wenn es was Neues gibt oder wenn es ein neues Ending gibt oder sowas. Ich hatte auch überlegt, Durchlauf zu machen, wo ich einfach immer die Fragen falsch beantworte. Aber ich glaube, das bringt einfach nicht so viel, außer vielleicht so ein bisschen, eigentlich so ein Pipis blöd. Nee, das ist so. Naja, wer weiß, vielleicht mache ich ganz am Ende noch ein Bonusvideo, wo ich einfach nur richtig dumm dumme Sachen mache und einfach nur richtig blöd bin. Anyways, wir sehen uns dann gleich wieder. Und ja, ich quäl mich jetzt mal durch die erste Kabine wieder durch. Bis gleich. Ich weiß nicht, ob ich das schon hatte. Aber ich sage jetzt einfach mal, also hi, willkommen zurück. Wir sind wieder auf der Suche nach Snake und werden ihn nicht finden. Aber Santa fragt uns, was wir denken, was ich denke. Spoiler, oh nein. Was Junpei denkt, wer denn bitte schön die Dinger repariert haben sollte. Und ich glaube, Lotus hatte ich noch gar nicht. Ich bin mir gerade nicht sicher. Ich meine, Lotus hatte ich noch nicht. Ich versuch's einfach mal. Ich sage einfach mal, für Lotus war als erster zurück. Macht ja Sinn, ne? Dass sie die Dinger repariert haben soll. Natürlich macht es überhaupt keinen Sinn, aber wir gucken einfach mal, was er sagt. Well, what about you, Junpei? Who do you think fixed this thing for us? Lotus. You think maybe it was Lotus? Ja, ich kann sie skippen, ich hatte es auch so nicht gut. They say the first person at the scene is the most suspicious. Oder was, das war weird. Yeah, that's possible. You don't have anything else to suggest you did it, though. You might as well just suspect everybody. Junpei furrowed his brow. So, in other words, one of us is the person who fixed the rat. Ich glaube, das war's schon. Yep, bis gleich. So, wir stehen wieder vor der Entscheidung und nehmen Tür Nummer 8. Ich hoffe, das war richtig. Das war das Labor, richtig? Ich glaube schon. Genau, bis gleich. So, da sind wir wieder. Ich nehme schon 40 Minuten auf, ne? Und ich habe vielleicht 10 Minuten Hoch-Footage, wenn es hochkommt, höchstens vielleicht 3. Mal sehen. Je nachdem, wie lange ich am Anfang gelabert habe. Wir nehmen jetzt Tür 6. Das ist die Tür auf Deck E. Die bringt uns durch den Maschinenraum und durch den Lagerraum, der auch sehr wichtig ist. Und dann sehen wir mal weiter. Ich habe versucht, so gut es geht, also ich habe jetzt auch Ace im Flur, als wir nach Snake gesucht haben, auch drauf angesprochen. Also ich habe ihn mal angesprochen, einfach weil ich so ein bisschen die Befürchtung habe, wenn ich ihn halt nicht so oft es geht auf Gesichter anspreche, dass mein Verdacht nicht fruchten wird später dann. Wenn es überhaupt darum geht. Also vielleicht ist es auch ein kompletter Red Herring hier gerade. Ich bin mir ziemlich sicher, dass dadurch, dass wir jetzt im Labor Zeit mit Lotus verbracht haben und sie uns gesagt hat, ja, es gibt ja diese Prosopagnosia, glaube ich. Prosopagnosia, Gesichtsblindheit, wo man einfach als Mensch sich nicht andere Gesichter merken kann. So, das sind einfach wie eine Grütze sieht das für dich in deiner Erinnerung aus. Und ja, und ich bin mir ziemlich sicher, ich bin mir so sicher, I'm on to his shit, dass Ace darunter leidet unter dieser Condition. Wir gucken uns das Ganze mal an. Vielleicht hat uns die Preview auch komplett in die falsche Richtung geleitet, aber ich bin mir eigentlich ziemlich sicher, dass wir auf einige interessante Dinge jetzt stoßen werden. Also wir sehen uns dann gleich wieder. Bis gleich. Okay, interessante Sache. Hier ist was ich nicht skippen kann. Ich gehe nochmal ganz kurz den Dialog durch. Ich habe jetzt gerade im Maschinenraum die Kiste hochgezogen. Oder runtergelassen. Ich glaube runtergelassen. Und ja, sind in dieses Gespräch gekommen über June und ihre Condition, dass sie jetzt Fieber hat und sowas. Und Santa meint dazu, we're just running around this room solving all these puzzles like it's just business as usual. How the hell would you call that normal? We're just guinea pigs. Santa snorted in disgust. Junpei, a guinea pig? You mean like a lab rat? You mean we're being used for some sort of experiment? Das ist, glaube ich, sehr interessant gerade. Is that what you're saying? Don't know. But it does seem like a possibility, you know? With that he turned and walked away from the winch. Ich weiß gerade nicht mehr, wie ich das schließen kann. Mit Escape? Nee, mit End. Nee. Ich weiß gerade nicht mehr, wie ich... komme ich hier raus? Help? X? Ja. Das war gerade der Geschichtsverlauf. With that he turned and walked away from the winch. Das kann ich nicht skippen. Junpei and Ace followed him. Ist nicht skippable, no? You know, speaking of experiments, Santa suddenly stopped. There was this experiment some scientists did with rats. First, they took a squarish C-shaped tank and filled it with enough water that the rats could drown. The tank has two exits, A and B. Exit A is pitch black, so dark even a rat can't see anything. Exit B, however, is electrified, which means the rat can't leave through it. So what would a rat do if it was put in this situation? Ich heulen würde. Which exit would the rat choose? There was a moment of silence after Santa posed the question, and then Ace responded. B, of course. The rat has no way of knowing that exit B is electrified. Exactly. The rat goes to exit B. Of course, like I said, it's electrified. Which means the rat can't go out that way. So, after a lot of trial and error, the rat finally finds exit A. I can't say that's very interesting or relevant. Ouch. It's simply the story of a laboratory experiment. You're right, it isn't very interesting. Yet. Huh. These scientists repeated this experiment over and over, using hundreds of different rats over several generations. This produced some surprising results. With each generation of rats, they took less time to find the correct exit. Eventually, a rat was put in the tank who instantly chose exit A without even attempting to go to exit B. But even that wasn't the most impressive thing. The same experiment was conducted in another laboratory far from the original one with the same results. No, on second thought, the results weren't really the same. The rats in the second experiment began the trials with significantly faster times than the first rats in the initial experiment. These rats were not related to the rats used in the first experiment and had never even come in contact with them, and yet they all easily found their way to exit A as though they already knew. What did it mean? Are you suggesting something like telepathy? They were passing information to one another through some undetectable medium? Ace looked skeptical. Santa snorted at him. How the hell would I know? I'm not any kind of scientist. I don't know what made them do that. But I do know that story's true, and if you've got another explanation, I'd sure love to hear it. Come on, let's get going. There's still a lot here we haven't checked out. And we gotta get the hell out of here before June passes out. Without waiting for a response, he turned around and started walking. Junpei, however, wasn't quite ready to leave the topic alone. Hey, wait. There's something I wanna ask you. Santa stopped and turned around. Why did they use that tank for the experiment? Huh? Well, I mean, it seems like you could conduct the same experiment without the water. They could have just used the dry box, you know? If they needed to motivate the rats to escape, they could have, I don't know, put some bait by exit B or something. I mean, do they really have to make it so the rats can drown? Santa gave a grim bark of a laugh. You know, the word emergency comes from the same root as the word is emerge. You ever think about that? Well, an emergency is something urgent, often something dangerous. And to emerge means to sort of come out or appear or rise out of something else. So what's going to emerge in an emergency? Inspiration. Inspiration? Yeah. Think about it. When the chips are down, either you crack or your mind focuses and pulls up what you need. So in an emergency, your real potential emerges? Is that what you're saying? Yeah. That's why the rats had to drown. They had to be in danger. There had to be an emergency for inspiration to emerge. Junpei suddenly felt cold. Das ist die Epiphany, von der Clover in der anderen Route gesprochen hat. The back of his head was aching and his stomach felt strange. Man braucht eine Epiphany, also eine Erleuchtung und Gefahr. Aber sonst passiert es nicht. Da waren wieder diese Kopfschmerzen, ne? Das war wichtig. Okay. Dann mal raus hier. Bis gleich. Hier ist noch was ich nicht skippen kann. Also es ist voll die Santa-Route gerade. The sudden revelation took Junpei by surprise. He had no idea what Santa meant. He glanced at June, who shook her head. She didn't know either. Er was a Santa Claus. Das ist die Santa Claus-Geschichte. Okay. We didn't have parents. They bought it in an accident when we were still kids. So I had to be like her dad. And that meant I bought her Christmas presents every year. Das ist eine andere Geschichte, als die uns letztes Mal erzählt hat. On Christmas Eve, I'd leave the present next to her pillow. And the next morning, she'd come running into my room with this big smile.
Look, Santa left me a present. Santa got me the doll I really wanted. I'm so glad that you got the letter I wrote.
I was the one who told her to write those letters. I'd say, write down something you want and mail it to Santa. The address I gave her was somewhere in Northern Europe that doesn't exist. Anyway, she'd write the letter and stamp it and send it out. And then a few days later it'd show up back in our mailbox, marked address unknown. I'd open the letters before she figured out they'd been sent back. Once I had a letter, I'd go around to a couple of stores with some money I'd saved up over the year and buy her the stuff she'd asked for. It took a lot of saving, but I managed to buy her presents every year. Junpei was silent. He could think of nothing to say. June looked down, uncomfortable. The wall next to him suddenly groaned. Either he hadn't heard the sound or didn't care. Santa kept talking. But one year her letter was different. She didn't write a list of toys she wanted or anything like that. Instead it said,
I don't want any presents this year. Instead, I want you to make my wish come true. My wish is that we'll be happy like this for a really, really long time.
But I couldn't make that wish come true. Some Santa I am. Santa looked sad. Junpei had never seen him look sad before. He wasn't sure he liked it. Junpei decided it was probably best not to ask Santa any more questions. But what happened? June glanced up at Santa quickly as she spoke. He answered, but only with an effort. She died. She was killed 9 years ago. There was nothing Junpei could say. His heart felt like a great lump of lead. June bit her lip and looked away. Her face was pale. Alright, let's go. Santa stood up suddenly, his downcast demeanor gone. He shoved the picture back in his pocket and headed back up the stairs, taking 2 at a time. Junpei and June looked at one another. There was nothing they could think of to say. Hey, what are you two doing? Let's get moving, come on! Santa's voice echoed across the room from above them. They nodded and followed him quickly up the stairs. Ich glaube, der Rest ist wieder skippable. Und das ist spannend. Diesmal kriegen wir ein bisschen mehr darüber heraus, warum er der Santa ist. Letztes Mal hat er uns so eine halbgare Geschichte erzählt. Von wegen, dass es einen guten und einen schlechten Santa gab und dass der gute Santa den bösen Santa getötet hat und deswegen jetzt seine Gewandung rot ist statt weiß. Solche Sachen. Diesmal hat er uns konkret was zu seiner Schwester erzählt. Dass sie getötet wurde. Sehr spannend. Ich frage mich, mit welcher Entscheidung das zu tun hat. Ob das die Entscheidung war, dass wir durch Raum 5 gegangen sind oder ob es die Entscheidung war, dass wir durch Raum 8 gegangen sind. Wir werden es nicht wissen. I don't know. Wenn alles gut läuft, ist das die vorletzte Aufnahme. Aber wir machen mal weiter. Okay, bis gleich. Okay, wir sind wieder beim Rätsel angekommen mit den Gesichterkarten. Und ich mag diese Funktion sehr gerne. Ich kann auch ein bisschen hochscrollen. Genau, Junpei hat gerade Ace erklärt, wie das Spiel geht. Beziehungsweise das Rätsel. Und Ace meinte, I see. Junpei thought he might have imagined it, but he could have sworn Ace stiffened. Just then. Junpei heard a noise. He spun around just in time to see June collapse in front of the fence. June, are you okay? She did not respond. Junpei spun back around to face Ace. I'm sorry, I gotta check on her. You do the box thing, alright? Just put the cards in the boxes. I'm counting on you. He shoved the cards into Ace's hands and ran off toward June. Oh, but he can't. Are you alright? What happened? Junpei called out to her as he ran. As he arrived, June was climbing to her feet with Santa's help.
I'm sorry. I'm fine. I just tripped.
Don't give me that. Now's not the time.
But it's true. I tripped over a box.
Junpei put his palm on her forehead. Her temperature was much the same as it had been the last time he checked. She wasn't hot like she'd been before, but she was still warm. Her fever wasn't completely gone. I saw her fall. I think she really did just trip on something, you know. Junpei would have been more willing to agree if June hadn't needed quite so much help standing up. Still, to fall down like that. I think she's probably still a little messed up. June was doing her best to busy herself brushing dust off her dress. Her smile looked a little embarrassed, and her face was a bit flushed. But she did look a great deal better than she had. Still. Alright, well, let's get out of here as fast as we can so we can get you to a hospital.
Oh, I don't think it's anything that serious. I just need a little medicine and some sleep and I'll be fine.
Medicine. Medicine, huh? Well, if we could get in touch with anyone outside, I'll bet Ace could swing that for you. Easy. Ace? Why? Oh, weil Ace einen medizinischen Hintergrund hat. Huh? Don't you know? He's the president of a pharmaceutical company. Ne. Cradle Pharmaceutical is the name, I think. Is er? Ne. Their flagship product is an anesthetic drug called Soporil. Soporil. Junpei couldn't shake the feeling that he'd heard about Soporil before. Santa continued. Soporil. Soporil is an anesthetic that is gaseous at room temperature, similar to nitrous oxide. It takes only a few seconds to spread, and even a small amount is very effective. For these reasons, it found widespread acceptance with police and military forces in numerous countries. It was an effective crowd suppressant and room clearer, and is practical, ethical, and humane. Developed 6 years prior, it was made from the extracts of several different roots. It became popular amongst almost as soon as it was made public, with many governments placing large orders. Demand for Soporil skyrocketed, and as it did, so did the stock of Cradle Pharmaceuticals. Why do you know all this? Cradle Pharmaceuticals waren auch diejenigen, die hinter den Entführungen steckten, so wie Seven das erzählt hat. Santa's information was interesting, but Junpei couldn't help but feel a little suspicious. Santa's reply was blunt and simple. I heard it from the old man himself. From Ace? When? By the number 4 door at the central stairway, when we were searching the second classroom. Remember how Snake, Seven and you went to door 5? Ah, das war der Auslöser dafür. Okay. I asked him what he did for a living, and he said he ran his own company. seine eigene Firma leiten ist ja wohl ein bisschen milde ausgedrückt, würde ich sagen. After that we just started talking and I guess it just came up, you know?
Are you worried about something?
No, nothing. As he spoke, Junpei looked over toward Ace. He seemed to be having difficulty with the 9 boxes. What the hell is he doing? He turned back to June and Santa. June, don't push yourself, alright?
Yes.
Santa, could you take care of her? Sure. He gave them both a short nod, then turned and headed toward Ace. What are you doing? Oh, Ace, du hast ganz schön Dreck am Stecken. Oh, Ace. Ace's back was to him as Junpei approached. The older man turned around to look at him. His face was pale and covered in sweat. What happened? Nothing. My vision has gotten rather blurry. I think perhaps because of fatigue. I can't see very well at the moment. What can't you see well? These pictures. Ace held the cards out to Junpei, splayed out in the shape of a fan. I don't care to admit it, but I may be developing presbyopia. Growing old is a difficult thing. He made the best attempt he could at the self-deprecating smile, but his face was flushed and his lips were pale and drawn. At any rate, I'll leave the rest to you. I'm feeling awfully tired, so if you don't mind, I'd like to rest for a bit. He shoved the cards into Junpei's hands and walked quickly away. Junpei looked at him quizzically. How could simply looking at cards have tired him out? Oh, da ist die Erleuchtung, da ist die Epiphanie. Junpei looked down at the cards in his hands. All of the pictures were quite clear and each person easily recognizable. Was Ace's vision truly so bad? But if it wasn't, what had made him so uncomfortable? That was when Junpei remembered what he'd heard from Lotus much earlier. Prosopagnosia. Well, put simply, it means a condition where the mind can't distinguish between human faces. In other words, my face would look like the same as Clover's, or even yours. So they can't remember faces, which is how most people recognize each other. That means that people with prosopagnosia have trouble recognizing even people they're close to. Maybe he's got prosopagnosia? Junpei took another look at Ace. He sat at the base of the stairs, looking quite depressed. It was reasonable, of course, that he'd feel that way. If he really did have prosopagnosia, there was no doubt it was depressing and a depressing and painful experience. Still, Junpei didn't feel like patting him on the shoulder and telling him everything would be alright would help but that much. Still, Junpei felt perhaps it was best to keep Ace condition to himself, at least for the time being. Es könnte wichtig sein später. Oh well. Doing his best to clear his mind for the task at hand, he turned back toward the boxes. It was time to solve the puzzle of the 9 boxes. 9 cards with pictures, and 9 boxes. Junpei stared at them for a moment and then began. Okay, ich glaube, das kann ich skippen. Bis gleich. Okay, ich bin wieder da. Wir haben das Rätsel des Cargo-Raums gelöst. Clover ist wieder verschwunden. Also auf die gleiche Art und Weise wie im ersten Playthrough. Wir sind jetzt im Large Hospital Room, um nach ihr zu suchen. Und hier kann ich nicht skippen. Also wir sehen mal, was passiert. Junpei and June ran to the large hospital room together. As quickly as they could, they searched around under the beds and in the corners. Ich kann es echt nicht skippen, ne? She's not here.
No, she isn't.
Alright, just in case, we should go take a look in the shower room.
The shower room?
That's where her brother is. She might have gone to see him. June bit her lip. She knew, as Junpei did, that there was only one thing to see in the shower room, and it wasn't pleasant. Well, we might as well check, right? Let's go. Das ist anders. Das ist anders als vorher. There was a screwdriver stuck between the door and the frame. Junpei and June stepped through the door, moved down the hallway and stepped into the shower room. No luck.
Yeah, I don't think she's here.
June's voice was faint and she placed her hands over her mouth. Her face looked a little green. The stench in the room was almost unbearable. It had grown far more unpleasant since their last visit. If Junpei had eaten at lunch, he would have had difficulty retaining it. He wanted to leave the room as soon as possible, but he had to be sure. And the only way to be sure was to check the other side of the divider. Wait here. June offered no resistance and nodded weakly to Junpei as he headed around the divider. He stopped at the corner and turned his head. As he'd expected, Chloe was nowhere to be seen. The only thing on the other side of the divider was a dead body lying in a reddish-brown puddle of dry and drying blood. There are many ways a man can die, but this... The skull was shattered and the head little more than a pulpy mass of brain, bone and viscera. The left arm was hideously twisted into a horrific alien shape, the bright white of the ulna shining through the remains of skin and muscle. Huh? Wait. Bright. White. Clover hat es ihm erzählt. Clover hat ihm von dem Prothesenarm erzählt, von Snake. Ulna. Bones. The pieces fell into place. Junpei remembered something Clover had told him in the laboratory.
My brother's left arm is, it's not like a normal person's arm. The accident hurt him really bad. To save him, they had to cut off his arm.
Of course. Of course! Why hadn't he realized it earlier? Clover had told Junpei that Snake's left arm was a prosthetic. But the left arm of the corpse behind the divider was clearly a real human arm, or at least what it had been once. That meant the corpse. Junpei and June headed back toward the last hospital room. They stepped through the door and out of the shower room. Down the hallway they went, searching for Clover in every corner. They had reached the stairs when... Seven appeared, breathless and yelling. Junpei! June! Where are you guys? He looked pale, his face was drawn. Something terrible had happened. Junpei's breath caught in his throat. Did something happen? Seven drew a shaking hand across his face and gulped down a breath of air. Clover is 9. Clover is dead. I found her in the first-class bathroom. Lotus lebt noch. Santa auch. All sound ceased for Junpei. The world was an empty, muffled expanse. Then he began to hear his own breathing. June's mouth moved, but he heard nothing. She tried once more, and then her energy was gone and she collapsed against the wall. He could have helped her, but he hadn't, and now she was dead. So he stood there, frozen in place. Clover. Clover. Why? Why had this happened? He forced his body to move. Each step felt like another nail pounded into his heart. Finally he was in front of her. He knelt and placed 3 fingers against Clover's neck. No pulse. No breath. But she was still warm and her eyes were closed peacefully. It would have been easy to think she was asleep. Easy, that is, were it not for the slowly expanding puddle of blood beneath her. He traced its source to her back, a gash just beneath her shoulder blade. Was the weapon a knife, perhaps? If it was a knife, the killer had taken it when they left. When he closed his eyes, he saw Clover's smile. Her innocent smile. Her energy. He would never see her smile again. He could have done something. He could have helped her. His stomach twisted itself into a sickening knot. Junpei lifted the limp June from the floor and carried her from the bathroom. Are you alright? It was a foolish question and he knew it.
Yes, I think so.
Her voice was weak. The fever had gone down, but the emotional scars she'd received were not likely to recede as quickly. Junpei laid his hand on her shoulder and they walked back to the bedroom. Sind jetzt noch mehr Leute tot? Ich vermut's mal. You should get some rest. He lowered June until she was sitting against the bed. She nodded once and stared at the floor. There were 4 others in the room. Es ist niemand anderes tot. Das ist interessant. Ace, Lotus, Santa, and 7. They all stared at nothing, their faces drawn and tired. After a while, they drifted into the bathroom to see Clover's corpse themselves. Once everyone was back in the bedroom, Junpei walked slowly to the center of it and looked around at the slumped figures gathered there. Who was the first to find the body? Me. 7 spoke from behind Junpei. He turned around. 7's hand was up. Why'd you come to this room? To look for Clover. Why else? I found the body in the bathroom. As soon as I did, I ran outside. I got to the top of the stairs by the casino and yelled as loud as I could. Hey guys, I found her, but it's bad. She's in the bathroom, in the first-class cabin. Come quick. Or something like that. When I went back to the bathroom, Ace and Lotus showed up real soon after that. But I guess you two hadn't heard me, or something, cause you didn't show. So I took off down the stairs to look for you. After that, I mean, you know the rest, right? Junpei nodded and closed his eyes. There was one more thing he needed to ask. 7, there's one more thing I'm worried about. What's that? When we finished all the puzzles in this room and got the door open, you stuck one of those plates in between the door and the frame, right? Why'd you do that? Come on, didn't I already tell you that? I did it so that the door wouldn't lock. So we could come back to this room. Oh! You think I did it? Well, I don't know. It kinda depends on what you say, doesn't it? 7 sighed and shook his head. Follow me. There were 2 doors standing next to one another. He opened the one on the right. Behind the door was a closet. They're safe. 7 stepped inside. He stood in front of one of the shelves that filled it and gestured toward a small box. The box was a small metal cube. He looked at Junpei. This is the reason. The safe. We couldn't open it when we were getting through this room. I figured there might be something pretty important in it. I couldn't stop thinking about it. Besides, I figured eventually we might figure out what the numbers are for the safe. And if we did, I didn't want to screw around with door 5 again. So I put the plate in the exit door so we could get back there in that way. You get it now? Junpei nodded and looked at the safe. He grabbed the handle and shook it. Nothing happened. It was as locked as it had been when 7 found it. There was one change, however. Just underneath the safe was a pile of fine reddish-brown powder. Rust? Junpei stared at it for a moment. Had someone opened the safe, dislodging the rust? Junpei left the closet. 7 followed him back to the bedroom. It was cold and quiet. No one spoke. They sat, frozen in place by shock and grief and fatigue. The room felt tiny and oppressive, and the thick metallic smell of blood filled the room. Junpei turned and headed for the living room. Anything to get out of there. Was there some other clue, perhaps? Anything that might lead him to whoever had stabbed Clover. He took his time and examined the room carefully. His eyes caught on the door. The door that led to the passageway of door number 5. Behind that door was the dead body of the 9th man. Maybe I should have another look at it, just in case. Quietly he pushed open the door. The smell hit him like a blow to the face. His lungs contracted, unwilling to inhale such fetid air. Fetid? Acid boiled up from the base of his stomach, churning what little food was there into violent froth. It was too much for him and he vomited. A thin stream of yellow water and bile splattered onto the floor. Ha! Ich hab die eine Kotzszene entdeckt, die es im Spiel gibt. Wahnsinn. Was für ein Glück. He wiped his mouth weakly and stared at the dead body. Chunks of torn flesh lay in an arc around the body. The remainder of his intestines had slid out onto the floor. The pool of blood that framed it was half dry, but so thick that it had taken on a texture not unlike that of an egg yolk prepared sunny side up. On the floor next to the broken mass of the man's head lay his glasses, cracks spidering across the lenses. Das Armband ist weg. The bloodstains never near them had already dried like scabs on the floor. That was when he noticed. It's gone. His bracelet. It's gone. It had been there when Junpei had gone through door 5 before. He was sure of it. Right next to the glasses. But now... it was gone. The number 9 bracelet was gone. But why? Had someone taken it? He was turning it over and over in his mind when he heard 7's voice.
Huh? Where'd Junpei go?
He had drifted out to him from the living room. Junpei walked slowly out of the hallway.
Oh, there you are. Were you looking for something in the hallway?
7 looked up as Junpei entered the room.
Did you find something?
He thought for a moment before he responded. No. Nothing. Technically it wasn't a lie. He hadn't found anything, in a way. In fact, that was the problem. Something he'd expected to find hadn't been there. The 9th man's bracelets. What's up?
Oh, well, I wanted you to take a look at something.
What is it? 7 led Junpei back to the bathroom. As Clover's corpse came into view, he felt his heart flip and then fall to the bottom of his stomach. Something between a sigh and a groan escaped his lips.
What was it that you wanted to show me?
His voice was hollow and empty.
I searched Clover's body again. I found this.
As he spoke, he moved around Clover's head, then knelt down and flipped open her right hand. Eine Notiz. What? She was holding a piece of paper.
I haven't actually looked at it yet. Didn't want to disturb at the crime scene, you know? Basic stuff. Well, I did borrow one thing.
He wasn't sure what that meant, but it likely didn't matter. The paper was more important. He picked it up and carefully opened it. There were 2 sentences written on it. Truth had gone, and truth had gone. Ah, now truth is asleep in the darkness of the sinister hand. Das ist die Notiz, von der Clover geredet hat, die der Kapitän oder der Typ in der Kapitänskleidung hatte. The Sinister Hand.
What is this? Some kind of secret code?
Truth had gone, and truth had gone. Ah, now truth is asleep in the darkness of the sinister hand. 7 peered over Junpei's shoulder at the note. Junpei stepped away from Clover's body and into the living room. He began to pace, attempting to decode the note. The first clue was likely the phrase sinister hand. Sinister hand means... I don't know. Die linke Hand, oder? muss die linke Hand sein, weil sonst die rechte Hand wird nie referenced in 999, aber die linke Hand ist der Fake-Arm von Snake. Right? Oh Gott, wie ich das jetzt verkacke, ne? Das ist saupeinlich. Ich sag links. Sinister was a term used in heraldry that meant to the left of the bearer of the coat of arms. Oh, ich hab recht. The left hand. The left hand. What did the left hand mean? Junpei looked at his own left arm. At the bracelet on his wrist. Er realisiert es jetzt. Ich glaube, er realisiert es jetzt. Mit dem Bracelet und dem Arm und Snake. Did the darkness of the sinister hand have something to do with the bracelet? He examined the bracelet closely. Oder auch nicht? There were two protrusions on either side of the face. The left and right sides of the face. Left and right. Left and right. Right and left. Truth is gone. Truth. Gone. It sounded funny. What did it mean? Truth. Gone. Maybe those two words. Truth had gone. Truth gone, truth gone, truth gone, truth gone, truth gone. How about reading it out loud? Das mache ich die ganze Zeit. How about switching them? Gone truth? What else could they mean? How about reading it backwards? Enoch? Nein. Truth had gone, truth had gone, truth had gone. Scheiße, was ist denn das? Oh, ich bin so kurz davor, verdammt. Oh no. How about reading it out loud? Truth had gone, and truth had gone. Ah, no, truth is asleep in the darkness of the sinister hand. Truth gone. Maybe those two words. How about reading it out loud? How about switching them? What else could they mean? How about reading them backwards? Ich sag einfach nur, what else could they mean? Ich weiß es nicht. What else could gone and truth mean? Truth, of course, meant something that was correct, something that was fact. In other words, something that was right. It would follow then that gone meant left. After all, after someone left, they were gone. In this case, however, they clearly referred to the directional homonyms. So that means truth equals right, gone equals left. Rechts hat links, rechts hat links und rechts hat links. Und jetzt schläft rechts in der Dunkelheit der düsteren Hand oder sowas. It seemed to make sense. Junpei looked at the bracelet again. At the two protrusions on the left and right of the face. Junpei pressed them in the following order. Truth had gone, and truth had gone. Right, left, right, left, right, left. Right, left, right, left, right, left. And then? Was? One after another, 8 numbers flashed on, then off, of the face of Junpei's bracelet. He checked one more time to be sure. One, 4, 3, 8, 3, 4, 2, 1. Das ist die Kombination. Oh mein Gott. 1, 4, 3, 8, 3, 4, 2, 1. Schreib das auf. Save. Kombination. Yay. 1, 4, 3, 8, 3, 4, 2, 1. 1, 4, 3, 8, 3, 4, 2, 1. 1, 4, 3, 8, 3, 4, 2, 1. Ja.
Huh? Hey, what are those numbers?
Junpei didn't answer. He couldn't answer. He had no idea what they were either. Besides, he was sure he would forget the numbers and the order they came in if he said anything. 1, 4, 3, 8, 3, 4, 2, 1. Muttering the numbers to himself over and over, Junpei headed toward the bedroom. 1, 4, 3, 8, 3, 4, 2, 1. 1, 4, 3, 8, 3, 4, 2, 1. 1, 4, 3, 8, 3, 4, 2, 1. Der ist ja fast wie ich. 1, 4, 3, 8, 3, 4, 2, 1. Before long, he found himself in front of the safe again. Its lock was the only device he could think of that required a sentence of numbers such as the ones he'd just discovered. Besides, someone had opened the safe at least once already. Had Clover come to the bedroom to open it? 1, 4, 3, 8, 3, 4, 2, 1. Junpei slowly dialed in the numbers the bracelet had given him. 1 to the right. 4 to the left. 3 to the right. 8 to the left. 3 to the right. 4 to the left. 2 to the right. 1 to the left. Finished. Junpei heard the small, telltale sound of a lock opening. He grabbed the handle, took a deep breath, and pulled it up.